I think over the years, one of the biggest frustrations with R107 owners when they're working with restoring the fuel system on their cars is trying to get this out of the fuel tank. That's correct. There is a finger screen located at the bottom of the fuel tank on all these cars. The R107, C107, this is the 450 SL, 380 SL, 560 SL, SLCs. And you can imagine what the screen looks like after 35 years. And if you're experiencing power loss problems, hard starting and so on, you've changed other filters and everything, you might have a screen that's plugged up, and so was the case with this one that I removed from another V8. So I've got the fuel delivery system removed, I've drained the fuel, and I'm ready to pull the fuel tank screen. We came up with this special socket right here. And this is a socket that goes in and removes these screens out of most other models, diesels, 126s, 123s, 201s, 124s. But it will not work in the 107. So for years, I mean literally years, we've had to tell people, you probably have to pull the fuel tank. And some of these are really stuck in there, and so was the case with Cherry here. You can see the clearance problem underneath there, and when I get under there, there's no way this socket is going to go up in there and grab a hold of the bottom of the screen and get it out. So I told my daughter, I said, okay, I'm tired of having you have to deal with these emails. I'll figure out a way to do it. And after working on this for a day, here's what I came up with. Jerson and I collaborated, and we have a tool now that really works. Now you notice, to do this, you have to drain the fuel. All the fuel has to come out, and you have to do it safely. I have a separate on-demand instructional video on fuel tank draining that's available on my website. I also have another instructional video that covers the total rebuilding of the rear fuel delivery system, new hoses, new clamps, new filter, and so on. That is also a separate video that's available on my website. When a person buys my tool in a new fuel tank screen, just so they know how to do that, because literally you need to drain all the fuel out of the tank and you need to get all this fuel delivery stuff out of the way, otherwise it's a real pain. Recently we made a revision to this tool that will even give you more torque, more grip on these screens. And so we went to work here in the shop and we came up with a major revision. Disregard all other videos related to how to remove this, how to get this on and tightened up and how to remove it, because even though this looks the same, you have to install it and work it completely different from the old tool. The only difference from the old tool to this revised tool is that this top nut is no longer threaded. In the original tool, both of these nuts were threaded. You had to insert the bolt, bring this one down, tighten it up, and then tighten this one up against it, and then use a socket to turn the bolt to get the screen out. Well, what was happening was these slots you see were grinding against the screen, putting it in and turning it out, losing the grip right here. So if you look at this, you can see what we've done. We've cut these little slots in here to grip onto this part of the bottom of the screen. So the first step is to just run this back like this. You're going to run this all the way in until it bottoms out. And then you're just going to turn this nut in until this bottoms out against the bottom of the screen. Now this is where everything gets different. You're going to need a 1 1/16 or 27 millimeter. You can use even adjustable wrench. You're going to hold the bolt. You're not going to turn the bolt. No longer will you be turning the bolt. And all you're going to do is tighten this nut down while holding the bolt. You get this tightened down real tight, and you can see what's going on there. That is just squishing all those little serrations on the inside of this nut up against the bottom of the screen. And then once you get that tight, and this is a big no-no, don't try to remove this as you did with the old one with the socket here. The way to now go after this to remove the screen is you turn this counterclockwise. And see, I can't even turn this in the vise now. It won't even slip. It's so locked on there, no matter how hard I pull, this isn't moving. So with this method, you should be able to now get the screens out of it just frozen and even partially corroded into your old fuel tank. Now to give you an idea how strong this is, I'm going to loosen the nut. I'll take the bolt out. And watch this. This won't come off. It will not come off. So if you're trying to get this off your old screen, about the only way you get this off is to hammer it off. Let's see how much it's going to take to get off. Look at that. I'm hammering on this thing. Okay, so you're going to have fun getting this off. Probably put it in the vise. Let's try that. So this is going to give you a pretty good idea how strong this is. And you're not worried about damaging the old screen anyway because you're going to be throwing it away. This is why you always have to replace the screen when using my special tool. All right, let's hammer on this up. There we go. And here, if you look, you can see how this has gone inside here and it's locked in here and locked in the outside there, so it literally cannot turn. So the important thing to remember is when you remove the screen, this is the nut you have to get the wrench on to turn it out, not the bolt. No longer are you going to use a socket, and you do not turn this one once it's in and locked up. But I think you're going to find this is really going to help get those very difficult R107 screens out of these old fuel tanks. The other problem was a couple people sent us pictures, and the hole cut out in the body for the fuel tank screen socket is not centered. Look at this picture here. See how it's off to the side? Well, even with this tool, you can't get the screen out of the fuel tank. So what we've told people, if you have a little bit of the sheet metal going over the edge of this big hex on the filter, you can take a Dremel tool and go in and kind of cut away on that sheet metal until you open it up enough that you can remove it. To install the new screen in your fuel tank, you have two options. The first option is to put the screen up in a vise and take the new hose or the rebuilt hose, install it in the screen and tighten it down very tight. Then you can take this over to the tank, put it in, and you can tighten it into the tank using the hose nut right here. The other option is to use the tool. If you're going to use a tool, do not use this top nut because it's going to score up your new screen. Just use the bolt, the one nut, run this in about 1/2 inch. Don't go in and bottom it out because you don't want to damage the flare at the bottom, and then run this nut in, tighten this nut up tight, and then you can take it over to your fuel tank and run it in with a 27 millimeter or 1 1/16 inch socket.